Okay, let's get you caught up in like 1 minute. So the Pete episode, it's basically like done. I have the final mix in. It just needs 2 final shots for the final crazy freeway pirate credit sequence. One of them we're going to be working on today. I just remembered that I love recording music, and I wrote a little ending song for the thing. So let's go back to the desert again and do crime for the rest of our lives. The boat shoot, the kind of all my eggs in one basket giant shoot that's going to result in like footage for multiple Dynamo episodes is actually happening. Everything's coming together. It's going to be probably the first week of October. Putting every resource I have into making that happen. That's very exciting. I'm literally filming most of another episode tomorrow. Quick update from tomorrow. We did it. We filmed basically an entire episode today. It turned out really good. It's a lot of green screen. This is the green screen episode for sure. Everything else is gonna be, we're trying to make it really practical. But yeah, everything we got turned out great. I'll talk more about it later. I'm gonna go sleep. And a different episode is also being everything's kind of coming together. I kind of acclimated to the idea that we'd only be doing an episode every couple years, but this is gonna be, I don't know, stuff's actually moving. We'll see what happens. Anyways, back to the Pete episode. So this green screen shot is one that's been haunting me for a while. Usually when I do green screen, I know what I'm gonna put back there, and so I just make it. But in this case, I did this shot not knowing exactly what. It's supposed to be him walking into the sunset. And but it's him kind of obviously just walking in one place, which I thought was going to be fine. I was going to do something like, it was going to be like a fake stage, you know, like cardboard assets, or it was going to be like a time-lapse of driving down a highway. It was going to be kind of stylized. That ended up not really matching the rest of the episode. And so what I did instead...
I love you!
But by then, he was gone. You know, I wonder sometimes what would have happened if I'd run after him, offered him a warm place to sleep, maybe some soup. But I'm too old for regrets. I'm so very old. I'm like 35.
I put it as a still in a photo on a wall, on the wall of a bar, kind of tying it back into the opening scene where this narrator's sitting in a bar and he's like, hey, let me tell you a story. And so here we get his ending narration being like, so that's the tale, you know. And so I stuck a lot of other photos around here, but I put in a couple kind of Easter eggs and different things that kind of connected, which unfortunately kind of implies a challenge to the audience of like, hey, I hid some stuff in here. Which meant I had to go through and actually rework a bunch of things so that there actually were kind of hidden stuff. And so a lot of these pictures, this one, this one, this one, and this one, I actually made a Patreon video where I made all of those, but it was basically just me over and over grabbing a bunch of photo scans, putting them together, and hitting render. I mean, if you guys want to see it, I'll edit it down and upload it. It's just not me doing anything particularly interesting. It's just kind of assembling a bunch of photo scans. But one thing I do like is that this photo right here, we actually see being taken in the credit sequence. As the credits are scrolling by in the background, you'll see the Freeway Pirates actually posing for the photo, which I thought was just kind of like a fun tie-in. So I was thinking I wanted to do the same thing with this picture here, which is kind of a showdown between the little knife robot and somebody playing chess, kind of evoking the DeepMind 90s, you know, chess master versus supercomputer standoff. And so I just wanted to show them playing chess somewhere in a shot. So I thought today I would show how we could kind of just turn this into a tiny little vignette with kind of minimal effort, rig them up, animate them, and just make a tiny little thing that we can stick in a shot, and then we just have that. Because it's one thing to put a nice environment shot in your film, but if you can actually have like little stories and things happening that people can watch, it feels that much more kind of fun and immersive. So I want to see if I can make them actually playing chess, but kind of animated. So let's hop into it. So my thought is the human is about to make like a good move, and then the robot goes ching and pops its knives out, and the human reconsiders and does a move somewhere else, with the implication being the robot would stab the person if they did the good move. Kind of a reverse droids don't rip your arms out when they lose type scenario, which means we have 2 actions we want to do. The first one's the robot, which is trying to get that right knife feeling. So originally I was thinking it would kind of swing him out kind of like a gunslinger, like shing, which we could do really easily like this, but I think that's almost too flamboyant. I want it to just kind of be a little like ching, just kind of a reminder like I have knives, I'll stab you. And the human is basically just reaching, but I want that motion to translate into the rest of the body. I want to feel the reach across the whole body, which means we're going to be doing that one with high K. But first, let's just start with the robot and see if we can kind of maybe get a little bit of that gunslinger. Like I want to mix them. So I'm going to work backwards. This is the final pose I want. So I'm going to add a keyframe here, just randomly on keyframe 30. Well, we'll adjust the timing of this later to match the human, because that animation might be a little bit more involved. So I'm going to hit I, add a rotation keyframe, and go 11 frames earlier and just tuck the knives away here. Add another keyframe. And that's already pretty good, except it shows we want to speed it up. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. In fact, I want to overshoot. So I'm going to actually go a little bit further here. And so they kind of will go like pop. Yeah. And this is most of what animation is. It's just kind of like watching it, dialing in the speed a little bit. Here, I might tone the overshoot down just a tiny, tiny little bit. And I've specifically never shown the mechanism that connects the knives to the robot's body. We always see him kind of small in the distance, which means we can make the knives do whatever we want without it having to make any sort of like real mechanical sense from like a mechanism standpoint. And we're going to take advantage of that to have the knives move like this, so they can kind of pop out and really get that kind of stabbing feeling. So again, I'm going to kind of work at the end and maybe, let's see, add a keyframe here. I want this to be where it's most sticking out. And then, I don't know, we'll see if this works. I'm going to tuck them in kind of like that. And I don't know. Well, we'll see how this all works. This might be a little crazy. Chink. And yeah, that works pretty good. Kind of has like a little bit of that gunslinger feeling without being too much so. I do want it to be kind of subtle. But let's see if we can kind of make it pop a little more. I want to kind of evoke that like like cocking a gun energy. So I'm going to open both of these up, hide all of the rotation keyframes, and let's see if we can just zoom in and tweak the location a little bit. I want to just tighten all of it up so that as the knives are here, this is when I want them to be popped out completely. So just kind of a quick... Yeah, and also alt-click on this to select all of the keyframes. That's pretty good. I might actually cheat the knives slightly smaller in this one, just again to keep them with the subtlety I want. So the only thing we have left to do is animate the robot body itself, and it's kind of interesting because we want to do two things simultaneously. I kind of want to imply from like a human standpoint, if a human's whipping out a gun, you know, they have some motion with their shoulders. They're leading into that motion with their body, and that's transferred into the gun. So I kind of want, you know, a little bit of like a whoosh as he whips them out, but then also he's floating, so these spinning knives are going to be affecting him too. Like when they try to come to a stop, that's going to pull him up. And so I'm not entirely sure what's going to feel right, which is really what it comes down to. Is I'm not actually trying to think through the physics, just what's going to match the best. So first I'm going to go with my instincts. I'm going to have him looking down at the board, into rotation keyframe. 3 frames before he whips out the knives, I'm going to have him just kind of tilt down, almost as if he's reaching into his pocket a little bit. And then as he's whipping the knives out, I'm going to have him tilt forward as if that's kind of him bringing his shoulder up. It's all about trying to communicate similar things that like people are familiar with, so they understand, you know, kind of the nature of the motion, I guess. And then I'm going to have him slow down a little bit here. Until the knives stop, at which point him trying to stop the knives pushes him back just a tiny little bit more. And can we zoom in so we can actually see oh, there we go. There's the important curve. Tilting up just a little bit here, and then slowing to a stop, coming back down. He goes too far because he's floating, and so we'll just kind of have him even back out like that. And let's see how that looks. Whooshing. Some of it works, but it's a bit much. I think I'm going to get rid of the anticipation here where he tilts forwards. I'm just going to go straight into him whipping the knives out like that to keep the whole thing subtle. And also this bit right here where he pauses in the middle is kind of reading as a jerky motion. So I might still kind of try to have him slow down just a little bit. Here I'm going to turn off no auto snap too, just to keep everything a little bit more fluid. That works pretty good. I want it to feel sharp, so I'm going to have this motion right here just line up with the knives popping out. And that feels good, except that bounce at the end is a little bit too intense, so we'll tone that down. And yeah, that looks good. And just to complicate my life, I think the last thing I'm going to try to do is offset one of the knives coming out, so it's kind of like, you know? So I'm going to select these bits, hit A to select all these keyframes, and just hit GX, which moves it on the X-axis, left to right, 1, which moves it 1 keyframe over. So now this knife will be just 1 keyframe behind, So now the other knife is just one frame behind the other, and we can have this in the robot's motion too. Here, have we animated? Let's see, anything on the Y-axis? Yeah, so this is him tilting. I'm gonna just add a little bit of tilt here. I'm gonna delete all of these other keyframes. He starts to move the one knife, so I'm gonna have him wobble that way, and then the other way, and I'm not going to worry too much about this one matching his motion as much. This one's just kind of because I want that rolling feeling a little bit, but I am going to use it as a chance to kind of make him feel a little more floaty. So I'm just going to add these additional keyframes as he's kind of smoothing out, and let's see. Ooh, that's no good. Here, I'm going to tighten all of that up. Tone it down. Cool, that works pretty good. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of floating motion. So hit I, add a location keyframe, which I should probably do once I actually have him set up in the scene, because right now I'm having him set up keyframed exactly here in this spot, but that's okay, we can do that later. Modifiers, add noise, scale it up to probably like 30 and a strength of 0.1, and maybe even higher here. That's some good floating motion. And I'm going to copy this modifier and maybe paste it into another axis too. Let's see, here's the the x-axis. Paste that, offset it so they're not in sync, and let's see, how's that feel? It's still a bit much. Here I'm going to make this point like 0.5, and the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the hat wobbling just a little bit. When he starts to tilt up, I'm going to add a keyframe to make it kind of come down over his eyes a little bit like this, as if it's trying to stay in the same spot. That's maybe a bit much, but that's okay. And then when he gets up, I'm going to have it kind of keep moving up just slightly. Like that, and then it pops back down over his eyes, just kind of like lagging behind his head's motion a little bit. And let's see, how's that feel? Yeah, okay, that's pretty subtle, but that's pretty good. I like floating little animated robots because I understand physics better than I understand actual proper character animation. And so something where somebody's doing something, and it's just like, all right, well then how would that affect everything else? My physics side of my brain is happier to animate that than think like, how do I evoke ultimate sadness on Ratatouille's face, you know? Okay, so we've got the robot. Now let's do the human. Okay, and here's my Freeway Pirate stockpile. These are all just my friends Rowan and Sienna over and over and over. Also, Sienna's dad, who I want to do more scans of because he is just absolutely... I want to scan everyone's dad. But yeah, all of these were just scanned on my phone. Using Polycam, I did a little bit of Boolean cleanup. I've got a bunch of videos about that basic cleanup stuff if you want to watch those. The one thing I did that was a little bit new was I did a lot of just fixing the white balance by dividing out the blue tint. Like right here, the original looked, if I hit M, I can mute this node, like this, just very blue. And so I'm literally just, I selected a little bit of blue, set the value to 1, and whatever amount I put into the factor, it just divides out that bluish color, which is a really good way to make everything feel, you know, a little bit more homogeneous. But let's pop on over to the chest. I'm going to grab Rowan here, go back to my scene, paste her on in. Where is she? There she is. Okay. And here, let's get them both kind of facing the same board. Why I have him keyframed all the way over here for some reason. Let's move him over. And there we go. Now they're actually facing each other. Let's get him just a little closer. And scaled up just a tad. Okay, so now... Wink. Excellent. I'm actually going to hide the robot for a while. We'll make him match whatever motion she's doing later. I'm going to select all of him and hit M, New Collection, Robot. Okay, and I'm going to just turn off Robot for now. So let's make a little chessboard here. I'm going to create a table. It's just going to be kind of a metal box, I think. So scaling this up, yeah, and then maybe Control B, beveling it, scrolling up to add a little bit more detail. And new material, image texture. Let's call this a box. Yes, and we pick our image texture. And honestly, any of these would work. Let's use metal bulkhead 0060. And how does that look just right off the bat? That's okay, but here, let's open up the UV editor, tab into edit mode. I'm gonna hit A to select everything and hit U, cube projection, which just reprojects the UVs. And if I line this up something like this, does that just feel kind of... Yeah, that feels like kind of an ambiguous metal box, and I can use Control R to add another edge loop here and we can just try to match the texture just slightly. Like right here, I want to actually model in that lip, I think. So here, let's add Control R, scale it down, bring it down like that. Add another edge loop, scale it in, and that looks a little bit weird, but that's absolutely okay. Let's make a real quick chessboard. I'm gonna use a plane, just put it on top of the box, give it a new material. We're gonna call this, what color are chessboards? I guess they can be white and black, or like red and black, if maybe that's checkers, I forget. We'll do this one, will be white. Chessboards have 64 squares, so I'm going to, that's 8 by 8, which means we need 7 cuts here, and in both directions. We're gonna create a new material, or we're gonna call it black, and make it black. And now we finally get to use, oh, this is very exciting. Gonna go into face selection mode and go select, checker, deselect. How apt is that? And we're just gonna assign all of the selected ones to the black one. And there we go, we got our chessboard. We could, let's see, I might select all of these edges here and just hit E, extrude, and scale it all up a little bit. And select all of that and just make that black so it has a little bit of a rim. That feels like a chessboard. Let's make the laziest chess pieces of all time. Here, let's create a cylinder. I'm only going to give it 8 vertices. Scale it down. This will be, I'm going to make pawns, and I'm just going to make taller ones. It's not actually going to be all that particular. Here, let's scale it down, extrude, scale, give it that little pawn head. Okay, so we have a pawn. Let's put that in the middle of the square there, and let's make another one, and it's just going to be tall because the back pieces are all taller. Let's try to make the absolute quintessential tall back piece, kind of a little thing here. And yeah, that could be anything except a knight. That doesn't look like a knight at all. If I tab into edit mode, and here, let's center this in the middle of the square, and I'm going to hit Shift D and move it over a certain amount. And if I line it up right, I can just hit Shift R, and it'll repeat that duplication and translation over and over. And look at that, we've got everything all set up like that. That said, that's let's still give it a little bit of customization. I should probably look up or actually design an actual like chess game, but I don't want to think that hard, and I don't want to encourage people to look into anything that hard. And so this is just going to be some random nonsense. So this will be this will be the white side. Shift D, let's rotate it 180 degrees and just use the exact same layout for the other side, except now we have pieces on top of pieces. That's okay. I'm gonna make these ones be black, and there we go. We have our chess pieces. Let's grab a white one here, duplicate it, P, separate by selection to make it its own piece. I'm gonna right click, set the origin to the geometry, and we will put this right in her hand like this. And now comes the moment of how do we actually animate her doing stuff. So what's cool about this is it's the hand moving with intention. It's the hand reaching for a thing, and the rest of the body is just following. And that is such an easy thing to do with IK. It means we'll be able to just animate the hand, and the rest of the body will just follow. And what's kind of cool about this too is we're gonna have to create a custom rig just for this exact pose, just for this photo scan. And that's a really handy thing to be able to do. We've done it a bit in like years ago, but let's do it again right now. So I'm going to hit Shift A, create an armature, just right down here, starting at the base, at the root. This is the bit we don't want moving because her butt is just planted in the dirt. It's going to be inside her, so I'm going to go to Object Data Properties, Viewport Display, and check in front, so we can actually see it. I'm going to go into Edit mode, grab the top bit, and extrude out a little spine, a neck, a head. Switch to the front and make sure it's kind of lining up along this axis too here. From the base of the neck, I'm going to extrude it out along the arm here, just kind of trying to get it along this way first, and then lining it up from the other axis, and trying to line it up for where I imagine kind of the ball of the joint would be. I'm going to do the other one right here on this arm, and going down here, going to the hand. And also, let's extrude out some stuff that's going to go in the legs. We aren't actually going to be animating this bit, but for when we're using automatic weights in a second, we do want some stuff there that it can actually parent to. So the way automatic weights works is it mostly just attaches the mesh to whatever bone is closest. And here I run into something I kind of have to figure out, because her elbow is planted right on her knee, which means she can't actually reach much further than she currently is, and because her leg, and this is a triangle, this is planted pretty securely on the ground. And so she can only really go forwards if, like, this whole deal kind of, like, fudges forward a little bit. And so I think I'm going to cheat it a little bit. I'm going to create a bone here that is inside the knee, but it's also going to be targeting another bone that's based off of the arm. So the whole thing will kind of be moving together in a way that hopefully won't look particularly weird. So this one will be the bone for the leg, and this bone up here is just going to be parented to like the forearm here. Select this one, shift click on this one, and hit Control P, just like regular parenting, keep offset. And so now this one will just follow this arm here, and this one will keep looking at it. And so the movement of the hand will still kind of affect the knee to kind of follow just a little bit without hopefully looking too bizarre. Now, before we get any further, just a reminder that automatic weights is just going to be attaching the mesh to whatever bone is closest. And there's times where that's kind of ambiguous, especially right now. Like, we've created kind of a skeleton, but like the belly area, which bone is this closest to? It's almost closest to this arm, which isn't ideal. And so we can help it out a little bit just by adding additional bones. Like here, I'm going to do a quick automatic weight, select the mesh, shift click on the armature, Control P, armature deform with automatic weights, and let's see if we can discover some wacky stuff. So let's grab this bone, and this is pretty typical, where it's like, it looks okay. We could run with this, but if we rotate the head too much, you'll see the top of the head moves more than the chin, which is kind of lagging behind. And that's because if we go into weight paint mode, you can see that while the top of the head is completely attached to this bone, the further down it gets, the more it's being also allocated to these other bones. It all kind of blends together. And we could fix that all with weight painting right now. If we slam this all the way up, we can be like, this whole head is now just going to be red, but like then you get into this whole balancing act. And so I like to do instead, and here let's delete the armature modifier and unparent so we can do this again. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I can just duplicate this bone and add a bunch of other bones here inside the head so that these will be the bones that the mesh is closest to, and I can parent all of these straight to the original head bone, so that head bone still now just controls everything, but like a lot more intensely. And we can do the same thing here with like the spine sticking out into the belly, and just parent these ones to this bone. And this foot isn't really near any bones, so I'm going to duplicate this one and stick it in to fill that negative space too, and parent it to the knee bone. Okay, so now I actually feel comfortable selecting this, shift clicking on this, Control P with automatic weights, and this should all actually work pretty good. If we rotate this, all of this stuff does more or less what you would expect. Although actually, here, let's go into edit mode. I'm going to parent this to this bone instead, because it's possible that this bone rotating could kind of drag this one all over. Okay, now let's get into the more complicated rigging, because I love IK so much, and we're about to go a little bit crazy. And IK, you probably already know what IK is, but it's saying like, hey, take this chain of bones and just solve it so that it ends up, so the end of the chain is like at, a given position that I specify. And to specify that position, we are going to create a new bone. So I'm going to select the end of this and just hit Shift-S, cursor to selected, which means when we hit Shift-A to create a new bone, it's not attached to anything, but it does appear right at the end of the hand. And actually, I'm going to do the exact same thing right here. Shift-S, cursor selected, Shift-A, make it a little bit shorter. And now we have our IK controllers. And we add the IK constraints in pose mode. So if I select this, then shift-click on this and hit Shift-I, which is a lot of hotkeys, but it's basically just Shift-I. But we can add our IK. And now when we move this, it moves the whole body. Look at that. Oh, this feels great. And you can see here the hand is kind of moving around, it's sliding around a little bit, which is why I'm going to do the exact same thing to this one here. Shift-I to active bone, and now this hand will just be locked on the ground. You can see it's a little weird that like the hand rotates, and if we added a couple bones down here, just kind of those placeholder dummy bones, that would have gotten rid of that problem. But honestly, I'm not going to let it bug me too much. But you can also see right here where the arm is just sliding over the knee. That's why I want to see if we can figure out this bone a little bit. Which is also proving that this bone should not be parented because we don't want the foot coming with. So let's tab back into edit mode, select this, Alt-P, clear parent, and see if this feels, yeah, that feels more natural. So I want this one to look at that one. I haven't done bone constraints in forever, but let's set it like a damped track. Let's rename this bone so we can find it. I'm gonna hover over here and hit F2. This will be knee target bone. Go back into this one, say the target is the armature, and the bone is the knee target bone. And okay, so now as this arm moves around, this bone is attached to this upper arm, and so the whole thing kind of, it just splits the difference a little bit, and that it just kind of makes the whole thing feel a little bit more natural. Another thing we could do if we wanted is the similar thing with the head. Here, let's create a, I'm going to tab in edit mode, create another bone here, which is going to be parented to the hand IK, and this will be, let's see, F2, the head target. And the reason I have it targeting, I'm going to have the head target this bone instead of the hand, is just to give us a buffer so we can kind of like still control where the head's looking if we want to. The hand will just kind of be a guide. Okay, so we got lucky with the first one. Let's see if we can do it with this one too. Damped track, target the armature, head target. That's the wrong axis. That is also wrong. Okay, there we go. So now we can kind of put it down below the hand, and this now controls everything. So something interesting about this is if we put this really far away, the head will always kind of be looking in the same direction. But if we move it really close to the head here, the hand's movements are going to affect the head even more so. So it's kind of amplified like that, which is an interesting kind of thing you can do. I might have the motion a little bit exaggerated here. Cool, and the last thing we do is we're going to parent this piece. So I have it selected, shift click on the armature, go into pose mode, select the bone we want, and hit Control P, parent to bone. I don't want to do automatic weights because I just do want it attached solely to the hand, and I don't want to risk like deforming the piece because it gets, you know, weight painted to different bones. But now, look at that. Okay, so I think we're ready to animate now. So I'm going to line up the piece so it's actually in line with some of these squares here, and we'll start, I think, back here. I'll get rid of these other pieces later so everything kind of doesn't intersect. We're going to animate with my favorite silly technique, which is where I just turn on auto keyframing and hit play, and whatever I do just gets saved as a keyframe. Ha, look, there we go. And a lot of times I'll end up doing multiple takes with this because it's kind of a hard thing to like animate in an entire person with a mouse in real time. But let's see how it goes. So she picks up the piece, kind of reaches, and then comes back and puts it down. Also, this weird doubling here, can you see that? I don't like it. You have to turn it off in Eevee, uncheck viewport denoising, and now everything will stay nice and crisp. And that's okay, it's a little bit too subtle. Gonna go back to the beginning, delete all of these keyframes, and I want to really make sure that I want that moment where she reacts to the knives coming out. So okay, she picks up the piece, she's reaching, and then whoop. Okay, I'll put it right here. And that works pretty good. Here, let's clean it up a little bit. I'm gonna go into the graph editor here, and the first thing I'm gonna do, because I'm animating with the mouse, it can be a little bit choppy. I'm gonna hit Alt-0. No, it's not Alt-0, don't know why I said that, it is Alt-O. Yes. And maybe twice, and just smooth it out a little bit. Like, there's something to be said for micro vibrations, because like that is really where realism comes from, is these kind of little secondary, tiny little muscle twitches and stuff. But for a wide shot, this is totally fine. I feel like her pullback might be a little bit too slow. So with no auto snap turned on, I'm going to turn on proportional editing and just select this whole chunk here and kind of just, let's see, can I set this to have the 2D cursor as the center here? I'm just going to scale this down on the x-axis, and because proportional editing's on, I can blend that with everything else by scrolling up, and hopefully that kind of gives us a shing. Yeah, just a little bit faster of a pullback. That feels good. And let's also have her kind of look up at the robot as it happens. She's going to start looking by looking down at the board here, and then, oh, I'm auto keyframing all over the place. She's looking at the board, and then the moment he pops his knives out, she's gonna look up, and then she'll kind of look back down at the board, and we'll see how this looks. And we'll go there instead. Okay, so now let's just try to combine the two. Let's turn the robot back on here. I'm gonna select all of the robot objects so we can grab all of the robot's keyframes. Move all the keyframes over so he starts to whip out the knives right when she gets startled, and let's see how this looks. It's okay. Like, obviously she feels a little mechanical. She feels a little bit floaty. Like, she feels just too slow. So I'm gonna grab all of these, turn it to 2D cursor, and just tighten all of it up around around that reaction, just a bit. And let's see, how's this? Yeah, that feels good. It does mean that her pullback is just a little bit too fast now, but we can slow that down. Just basically undoing what we did before. I'm gonna grab this and with proportional editing on, just kind of pull it back a little bit, renormalize it, and that's okay. Again, if this were a proper, like if this were the focus of the animation, this would probably not be very good. But for like a little detail somewhere where you go, it's a robot and a person, and they're having kind of a little situation. That's nice. I do think I want the robot to kind of follow her hand as she moves it, so I'm going to add another keyframe, let's see, on the x-axis here. So I'm gonna add another keyframe here, and then as her hand moves down, I'm just gonna have I want to just kind of feel like a cat, just kind of like watching the moving thing, like, is this doing what I want, or do I have to attack it? Yeah, that works okay. All right, so that's basically it. And just to finish things off, let's load in an environment texture, bring in a nice HDRI. And I recently got some really nice photo scans from a guy named, I think, Loopy over on Sketchfab. Let's see if we can find those. Let's type in the slab. Yeah, good old slab here. Let's check the slab under him. And actually, just to finish this off, let's put some chunks of ground in there. I think I have some. Yeah, gravel and grass is a nice all-purpose deal. Let's bring in some more slabs here. Maybe make a little bit of a wall in the background. And let's create a camera. Stick it in a good, let's see, about standing person height. I want this to feel as if somebody's just filming it. Right click, set depth of field distance to around the board distance. And so now if we go into the camera settings and check depth of field, turn the f-stop all the way down, we can see the focus is centered on the board. Here, we might turn the distance up just a little bit. Turn the f-stop back up. I'm gonna go to the beginning, move the camera to the left a little bit, and add a location rotation keyframe. And at the end, I'm gonna just move over here. We're just gonna be kind of walking by a little bit. I'm doing just a very basic, I'm gonna use camera shakeify, and this could be a good, I haven't used investigation in a very long time. Let's turn it way down. Even more than that, I don't even wanna notice it. She does feel a little mechanical, especially that head movement. I'm just going to turn that head movement down a little bit. Here's the head bone, and let's see. If I just grab this and bring that down, and maybe even have the head look up before the rest of the body, and so it kind of... And I actually didn't go very in-depth with IK on this one, and I'm feeling a little bit bad about that, but I've done a lot of videos that go more into it. I'll link to one of them below, because right now, this IK chain is going all the way back down to the root, because in this case, that's what I wanted. I wanted to see, I wanted it to translate into a lean, but a lot of times, you just want the arm to be affected. You don't want it to go all the way, and what's crazy is this hand is also going all the way to the root. It's averaging out both of these, and this one in particular probably doesn't need to go all the way back. If we select this bone here, go under bone settings, inverse kinematics. Wait, no. It's just under the bone constraint tab. We can change the constraint length, and you can see the yellow dotted line just keeps going. Here, now we'll go to the next bone, and now this influence only goes up to the shoulder, which is probably actually all we need for this. And this is the part where I feel like I didn't maybe put enough stuff into this video, and so let's make her breathing. Yeah. Here, we select her mesh. We're gonna go under the data properties, add a base shape key, which is the default shape, and then we're gonna add a new one, and we're just gonna call this breathing. With that selected, we're gonna go into edit mode, and I'm gonna turn on proportional editing and just grab some bits on her chest and pull them out just slightly. Here, scroll down so we're only getting... Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now that gives us the breathing shape key, which we can do this, and look at that. It's a little bit of breathing action. Let's go to frame 0, add a keyframe. Let's go to maybe frame 19, add another keyframe. We can duplicate this original one here like this, move it later. If we select all of these and hit Shift-E, make cyclic, nothing happens because I think I did not... Okay, this is not actually going up. There we go. In fact, let's make the maximum be 2 just so we can really see what's going on here. And now I make that the keyframe, and oh, there we go. There's some good breathing. We can easily make it, more subtle or slower if we want to, but that is a very unnecessary detail. She's just scared now of her recent knife interaction. Also, at one point I made a better hat than this. I'm gonna bring in the better hat. Append, wanted poster scene, object, hat. There we go. Let's bring in the good hat. And how do I get this texture onto this one? Can I just select this, shift click on this, and hit Control L, link materials? That worked. Okay, good. So now we have better material on this hat. Yeah, it's still a little bit too shiny, but that's okay. I say that as if I'm not gonna fix it. Just turn down the specular. Yeah, that feels more like leather. And because I have to, let's add a little bit of a volume haze here. Here, just scale up a cube. This will be our volume domain. Maybe make it a little bit shorter. Give it a new material. We're gonna call it haze. Here we go. Delete this. Shader, volume scatter into the volume. The density is going to be like 0.02. That's probably a bit much. And turn up the anisotropy so it kind of follows the light a little bit. And that separates them from the background, makes it feel like kind of maybe it's early dawn. There's still moisture in the air. One thing I'm going to make sure of is that the mesh data here under normals does not have auto smooth selected. Because if it does, when there's motion blur, it'll be recalculating what the new auto smooth, what the hard and soft edges are on every frame as the mesh deforms, and that can actually result in crazy motion blur, as it's like, I don't even know why, but it will just kind of be this fuzzy cloud. And so making sure that's off. If you really still want that kind of like those hard edges though, you can go under geometry data and say add custom split normals data, and that will do the same thing, if I recall correctly. And okay, so that, it looks okay. Yeah, I think the real secret lesson here is just the ability to think in different levels of detail. Like right here, it's the lack of secondary motion that really sells this. Like the hand not changing rotation, the little tassels on her face not moving. The breathing is actually doing more than I expected, but stuff like the antenna wiggling and like little secondary motions and stuff here. Any sort of additional love to like the cloth, the different folds and stuff, or like, you know, different muscles that should be, you know, if I added a shape key to kind of like have a certain muscle tense when she grabs the piece. It's the little stuff like that. Like, it always kind of sounds like BS, but it is the subconscious stuff that really does help sell the thing. And so this is more than fine for like a little detail that'll be in a scene that people can find and be like, oh, it's a person, a robot, like doing a thing. But for a shot, I'd probably want to give it just, you know, more attention. But yeah, so now all I can do, I can make this a collection and I can just append it into any scene I want, and I'll have somewhere these two playing chess. Anyways, I'm gonna try to do kind of more videos like this that are just kind of like shorter. I think I kind of let myself think that every video had to be covering completely new territory and all of that, and making life harder than it needed to be. But yeah, I'll keep you all in the loop about how the boat shoot's going. It's going to be the biggest shoot I've ever done in my life. Again, I've been saving up the Patreon money you guys have been giving me for the past like 2.5 years, and so this is what I'm spending it on. I've got a lot of Nate's been making a lot of costumes, and anyways, we'll get into that later. Hopefully there was something kind of fun in this for you, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging out.